Our Bears are on a roll right now, right? And it feels fantastic. But one of the greatest determinants in how the season ends isn't just practicing hard, but it's also staying healthy. And that gets harder and harder as those athletes' bodies take a pounding week in and week out, multiple times a week. So now the NFL has turned to technology and Amazon Web Services on an injury prediction tool that uses data and artificial intelligence to help teams manage the health of their players. Really interesting stuff that they're doing. Want to go ahead and bring in Julie Souza, a global head of sports at AWS. Thank you so much for your time.
Good to be here.
Tell me all about this digital athlete tool.
So the Digital Athlete is a player health and safety portal that we were thrilled to work on with the league with the goal of reducing injury rates in the NFL. And I will tell you, this is a fact I'm particularly proud of. In the first season of rolling out the Digital Athlete platform, there were 700 fewer missed games by athletes. So it's really a predictive tool that lets coaching staffs and trainers and medical staff really understand who's at risk of injury and then disintermediate that, right? And so, whether it's load management or changing up training regimens to stave off potential injury, we're seeing real success there.
Wow. So how exactly does it work?
So the league is collecting a tremendous amount of data through optical tracking, which is cameras, as well as sensors that the players wear in the shoulder pads, as well as the ball being chipped. And so, to give you a sense of the volume, it's about 500 million points of data per week that are being collected and then processed, and machine learning applied and predictive modeling applied to be able to put those insights out through a digital portal that the coaching and medical staffs have access to.
Wow. Okay, so this is the third season, as I understand it, that all teams have had access to this. What's the feedback that you're getting?
It's tremendous. To have, nobody's asking for less data, right? So the fact that there's more data to help inform how they train and protect and coach their players. And you know what? Look, players want to be out there doing what they do. Team owners certainly want those players on the field, and fans want their the athletes out there performing at their best. So, everybody's invested in this. And it's interesting because the work that we have done has also helped us detect plays that are potentially more injurious, and then rules are being changed. Mm-hmm. So last season, the hip drop tackle, which I could demo that for you, but I won't. That was found to be had an injury rate of 20x over a normal pass or run play.
Wow.
And the league took a look at that data and said, you know what, we're banning this play. We saw the dynamic kickoff rule, or the kickoff rule change last season. And that was in response to the fact that it was causing a 2x injury rate and a 4x concussion rate over a normal pass and run play. And also, the kickoff wasn't being returned that often. So it wasn't that interesting of a play. So using 10,000 seasons worth of data, we were able to simulate, what could we do to that rule or to the kickoff so that we could optimize for returns and lower injury rates. And we saw that come to fruition last season with the new kickoff rule, really bringing injury rates in line with normal pass and run plays. And also lowest concussion rate ever last season as well.
Huh. Interesting stuff here. Now, you mentioned no one wants less data, but sometimes tough guys like to overlook issues to continue to play. And if they're performing at a high level, it has seemed like in the past, like people were willing to maybe look the other way. Does it make it harder now for those types of situations to occur?
Absolutely. And we are finding players leaning in here, right? Even you seeing some players wearing the Guardian cap more fully than they were in the past. And that's because the players do want to prolong their longevity in the league. And so if the data helps them stay safe and healthy, they're actually really receptive to it. Other innovations that they've been receptive to are helmets. It used to be sort of a one size fits all, the same kind of helmet for every player, but the league was able to determine, again, through all of this analysis of the data, that a quarterback is going to absorb a hit much differently than a wide receiver. And so position specific helmets are being designed for players as well. And that adoption certainly takes time, to your point of, change management and sort of being comfortable with what they're used to. But when presented with the data, this is a much safer helmet. This is a much safer way of training. Players are receptive.
Yeah, it's also a change in mentality.
Absolutely. And I think you have a generation of players that are more technically savvy and data savvy. So whereas it used to be all like, what's my say? You're hearing people say, what's the data say?
So have you identified already, and maybe have you already put into practice some innovation, some improvements to the tool that's 3 years young?
Yeah, so it's a great feedback loop. I mean, the teams are using it, their medical staffs are using it, their coaching staff, and what other insights do you want? How do we present this data? So sort of a dashboard view. We're talking to the league about actually putting a natural language search agent on top of it so that people could just type in questions, right, and get a natural language response answer back to them, leveraging generative AI tooling. So we're always looking to refine and improve and collect the feedback from the team and the league to do so.
Are some teams more receptive to it than others?
Absolutely.
You can tell us.
Right? That's always the case. They're the early adopters, and then there are those that are maybe a little bit more skeptical. But it's fully deployed across all 32 clubs right now. So as we've said, no one's going backwards. Nobody's saying we don't want this anymore.
Really, we had the most interest in finding out whether the Bears were receptive. I'm playing with you. I don't want you to answer that. So have there been any privacy concerns? Because it is a lot of data, and I feel like anytime we talk about data and multiple people sharing it, some people do have privacy concerns.
Yeah, that's all very, very carefully guarded. First of all, how that data is used and what for is carefully governed by the collective bargaining agreement that the league has with the players union. And we at AWS, security's job one, right? Protecting that data and making sure that is used for its intended purpose and only for those who have the right to access it. It's paramount.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking at maybe other sports, soccer or some other sports that could possibly be used, or these tools could be used for?
Yes. And I think that the application of this tooling actually extends beyond sport. You talk about repetitive motion, whether it's, physical therapy centers or manufacturing. There's an application for this sort of technology beyond just the sports ecosystem. But certainly, if you're asking me, what would you love to do with this and where would you love to take it? I would love to take it to the WNBA and figure out how do we get insights around female athlete player health and safety to advance that, because a lot of the work that's been done in the field of player health and safety to date have been on male athletes. So I would love to sort of catch the ladies up, if you will.
That is a new frontier. I like what you're talking about there. So what types of injuries? You mentioned repetitive injuries, and I even thought about tennis elbow. But what types of injuries could this be mitigating? Are we just talking about the repetitive ones, or are we maybe even preventing some that are very, very serious?
Sure, absolutely. We see lower extremity injury rates, you're seeing concussion rates. So it runs the gamut for sure. And it's not, to your point, just repetitive motion. It's, we can also detect when players are maybe favoring, hey, look, you're spending a little bit more time on your right leg. We got to build up the strength on your left. So you're starting to figure out things that help players train a little bit in a way that helps them keep them safer and healthier longer. So I think there's no limit to the type of injury we're trying to stave off.
Wow. I've said wow so many times in this interview, but my mind really is blown by the possibilities of this thing. I'm sure, I listened to an interview last weekend with Michael Irvin, and he's just going off about new school players versus old school players. You had to have some naysayers on this. What have you heard from that standpoint, and what do you say to them?
Look, the data doesn't lie, right? The data is telling us, 700 fewer missed games right? Concussion rates lowest than they've ever been. Plays that are now that were hyper injurious in the past either don't exist anymore or have normalized. That I mean, I you will have naysayers, but I think just proving it out. Here's the data. It's proving its efficiency and its efficacy. I think it's really hard to combat that.
And from a job standpoint, how many people are working on this? Like, it seems so extensive. Does this really widen out? And what kind of people are working on this? Like, what kind of jobs go into this type of technology?
That's a great question. Well, so you have to have the folks who understand football, right? So the league is certainly a strong partner here, and their consultants as well. But then we're talking about machine learning experts, data scientists, ML engineers that are creating these models and insights. And then obviously at the team level, it's getting that feedback loop, but also, sharing the insights with medical staff, with training staff, with coaching staffs. So there's a wide variety of contributors to this initiative. And the skill sets range from medical and training to football knowledge to hardcore data science and AI ML tooling.
Yeah, and I ask you that because I think it's so important, especially for young people, to hear that, to know that there are so many different ways that you can work in the field. Like there's only so many players who go from Pop Warner to the NFL, but there are so many ways that you can actually work with football in other types of avenues. And this is an emerging one.
And the NFL has a great, and we're proud to work with them on their Big Data Bowl every year, where they're taking a subset of their data and they're making it available to aspiring and current data scientists and ML engineers and saying, hey, help us find insights from this data that help us improve the game. That's largely focused around their next gen stats, analytics. But it's certainly letting people who actually maybe have the scientific or engineering, experience, bring that and port that over to football to improve the game. So we just kicked that off with their Dublin game a couple weeks ago. So that's a really exciting way of engaging people in football that, you're right, don't necessarily have to be a player to contribute.